Hey guys, what's going on? It's Ash here coming at you today in Clash Royale. Hope this video finds you all doing well. Today we're going to be talking about the flying machine. I put out this poll, over 3,400 of you guys voted. Is the flying machine good? Now 65% of you, including yours truly, thought that it wasn't good. I wasn't a big fan of the flying machine. In fact, I'm still not a big fan of the flying machine. However, I did notice one thing. Out of that 35% of people who said that it was good, a lot of them were pro players. So I thought to myself, wait, am I missing something here? So I reached out to a few of the pros who I knew who were actually doing well with flying machine decks, whether it be in tournament play or on ladder. In this case, we're going to be showing the replays of Kirito, aka Dion, who's actually been on the channel before. He finished top 50 in the world using this flying machine deck, and it's really interesting. Even though it has the Goblin Barrel as the win condition, it's not really a bait deck per se. I mean, you do have the Princess, so there is an element to the bait. It also has Goblin Gang, so it is kind of a bait deck, but it's more of like a chip deck, a defensive slash chip deck. We're going to talk a little bit about why. We're going to go in depth on this deck, and we're also going to share a bunch of different replays against a nice variety of decks here in today's video. But first, the flying machine itself. I mean, Dion said, and I heard this from a lot of other pros too, it's not that it's OP by any stretch of the imagination. It doesn't need a nerf or anything like that, but it can be very difficult for opponents to deal with, and although the overall DPS is basically the same as a Dark Goblin, the damage per shot, because it fires a little bit slower, is actually more, so that does change some of the specific interactions of the flying machine, and it just can be annoying. It's annoying to deal with an air unit that deals out that much damage from that range, so it's something we haven't really experienced in the game before. I do feel that it kind of fills a role in the game that we haven't really had. I mean, there's nothing like this. A single targeting air unit, there's nothing like it from a distance right now. So I'm happy with the card, and you can see we'll actually get into the play-by-play in the next replay because he already took down that left tower going against a Mega Knight deck, which Mega Knight is another story in itself. This is the first season when we started to see really how OP Mega Knight truly is, when more and more people started to have him maxed out for ladder. So again, we're not going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about flying machines. So what about the rest of this deck? Well, we have the rocket. That's basically you're going to try to get the towers down into rocket range. 717 with a max rocket, 493 with a tournament level standard rocket, or of course somewhere in between depending on your rocket level. Now that rocket's going to be your final play in a lot of these matches, but you do have two cards that we haven't talked about yet. We have the Tombstone and we have the Tornado. Two defensive cards, and you can see this replay really illustrating it beautifully, just how useful both of them in conjunction can be. Having a defensive unit such as Tombstone, such as Cannon or Inferno Tower, and still having the Tornado actually proves to be a viable pairing, even though it doesn't really seem to mix. It seems like water and oil, it shouldn't be mixing. You shouldn't have Tornado and Tombstone. However, again, works out really well in this deck. So let's go ahead and see how he deals with a classic bait deck. I believe, well, he has Tornado in his deck, so I wouldn't say it's a classic, but anyway, it's kind of like bait versus bait. Let's pay a special attention to Dion's version on the bottom of your screen. So the Tornado, obviously the first thing that you're going to be using it for, as you would in any match, is going to be to activate the King Tower, if at all possible. Now the opponent doesn't have to use Tornado because you already have the Goblin Gang split behind the King Tower. So really, this is going to be, again, the battle of the chip decks, the battle of the bait decks. Bait slash chip is still everywhere right now in the meta. It's definitely one of the most, if not the most powerful decks in the game. However, this last season we saw a lot of Hog. A lot of Hog, even more than normal in the top 50 of ladder, including the #1 deck in the game. That is going to be tomorrow's video, so stay tuned for that, guys. But anyway, here comes the first, or the second rather, Goblin Barrel here for Dion. He's going to make a little bit of connection with that left tower. However, his opponent was able, excuse me, to activate that King Tower as well. So now both King Towers are activated. You guys know, once you have that King Tower activated against Goblin Barrels, all all you have to do is use your tornado to pull the goblin barrel 2 squares basically to the bottom or to the closer to the king tower, and you won't take any damage at all because the king tower and the princess tower take care of the goblins along with the damage of the tornado before they're able to actually make any connection with the tower. We'll see plenty of examples of the proper placement on that coming up here. So here it comes, a log and a goblin barrel. Princess actually helping out well there, and there it goes, a tornado preventing any damage from that goblin barrel 2 squares to the southwest there. And the princess in the meanwhile against us is getting some heavy damage on our right tower. We decide not to deal with the princess with the goblin gang, rather to attack the opposite tower, and that was the right decision. Comboing the knight with the goblin barrel just as you would a normal bait deck proves to be a very, very strong tactic with this deck. So of course, as far as the goblin barrel and the knight synergy goes, it's going to be basically the same as any other bait deck. So here comes Flying Machine. You saw the previous match, the Flying Machine got a lot of damage on the tower. Along with the goblin barrel, the Flying Machine, after a successful defense, you're never going to be playing your Flying Machine at the bridge, okay? After a successful defense, the Flying Machine often gets a decent amount of chip damage because the opponent doesn't want to waste a spell, certainly, on the Flying Machine. And, you know, if they trade like a Mega Minion against a Flying Machine, they're essentially throwing away 3 elixir on the other end. So it's a weird card to kind of deal with because of the cost. It doesn't present an amazing opportunity for a value trade for your opponent. So here we go again, Goblin Barrel being used to kind of stymie that Goblin Barrel in the right. We have Flying Machine making contact on that right tower. We're not too worried about the right tower. Instead, we're going to cash in on that elixir advantage and be the first to cast the rocket. Now, as you guys, most of you probably know who have ever played bait before, when you get into a bait mirror match, the person who usually rockets first usually ends up winning. So I think the opponent might have made a mistake with this knight right here. He uses the knight to try to distract that princess, doesn't even work out there, and then he provides Dion the opportunity to go ahead and drop the first rocket. Not sure he really needed it there, as the princess probably would have finished off that tower either way. However, a nice kind of split-second victory there. So we saw bait versus bait there. Now let's go into a more interesting matchup, because the opponent here, Joker from Stormclovers, also has Flying Machine. So this is going to be some Flying Machine on Flying Machine action. Now, just as in a regular bait deck, using a Goblin Barrel as the first move of the match isn't necessarily a bad idea, and you can see he goes super aggressive on this right lane, guys, using the Knight and the Goblin Gang afterwards, trying to punish the opponent for pumping there. Of course, punishing in this archetype is still very, very important. Gonna go ahead and use that Tombstone to shut down that Bandit and the Night Witch coming in the right lane. We ended up taking almost no damage on that right tower. So now the Princess going to work in the left lane. We do have Rocket that we're going to be saving for the pumps from here on out. So this is a crazy deck here being played by Joker. It's a Bandit Battle Ram deck, so it's really like the quintessential bridge spam deck with poison as well. Also has the P.E.K.K.A. in the pump. Interesting deck. I might try this one out myself. If you guys are looking for a good kind of bridge spammy type deck, the Joker's deck might not be a bad option if you have Night Witch and Bandit. The good thing about Karuto's deck is that he actually has not a lot of legendary cards, just the Princess in this deck, so it's kind of free-to-play friendly. So there goes the Rocket on the left tower. The opponent obviously not ready for that Rocket there, didn't have Rocket in the starting hand, so wasn't able to use it against that first Elixir Pump of the match. Now here's going to be an interesting defensive sequence. Watch how he defends this. So P.E.K.K.A. and Night Witch coming down the lane. He's going to use Tombstone first, going to use Princess to the right, he's going to use Knight to distract back up into the lane, and then just in the nick of time, he's going to be able to stop that P.E.K.K.A. before she gets a hit on that left tower. That was really, really close. That could have affected the match in a big way had that P.E.K.K.A. gotten one hit off on that left tower. But so far, guys, only a minute left here, and we're not connecting for a lot. But look at that, guys. The opponent has nothing to counter that Goblin Barrel. Opts not to use the poison against the Goblin Barrel. That's a pretty crappy counter. He opts to pump instead, and then, of course, Dion is ready with that Rocket. So now things are much more even. In fact, the advantage here goes to Dion. Now the princess able to get 2 hits on the left tower. Guess what that means, guys? Doesn't matter how much else she gets, it's already within rocket range. Rocket is our only real direct damage spell in this deck, so the only number we're concerned for all intents and purposes is that 717 number. Again, a big offensive push here, a good tornado, and a great value rocket there, and now using the tombstone to stop the battle ram in the left lane. A really nice defensive sequence. Now the opponent has to go all out because he knows he has the rocket, but he doesn't need the rocket. He's going to use the goblin barrel instead against that left tower. Now with 2 seconds left, well, he could have just tornadoed. He opted not even to do that. Throws a little bit of shade at the end with a BM, and we're going to be on to our next match. Now, Dion actually messaged me saying he won 9 matches in a row at the top of ladder, which is a really big accomplishment. I mean, sure, many of us have won 9 matches in a row before, but at the top of ladder, where everybody's maxed and everyone is really good, that says a lot about a deck. With this deck, which can only be described as an off-meta deck right now. You don't see Tombstone and Tornado being run together in top 50 very often, and you don't see Flying Machine being run very often as well. So here we go again, starting with the Princess in the back. Of course, if you don't have Goblin Barrel in your starting hand, Princess is a very viable play. Going to do a good job blocking that Miner with the Knight. Now Princess is just barely alive, but not for long after that Fireball hits down, but we're going to go ahead and use a Goblin Gang to distract that Mega Minion. So here we already have more damage on the opponent. Now we just have to keep playing defensively, but smartly at the same time. Getting chip damage, obviously, with any bait deck, you want to make sure, guys, oh, look at this Tornado here, taking care of all the bats, buying time for the Flying Machine to take out both the Mega Minion and the Ice Golem, and bats not a worry anymore thanks to the Tornado. So here comes Princess again against the Mini P.E.K.K.A. Mini P.E.K.K.A, we're gonna have to stop him with something. It's gonna be Goblin Gang in just a nick of time. Now watch this defensive sequence, able to cycle all the way back to the Tornado again, guys. It's a pretty fast cycle on this deck, able to stop that balloon from reaching that left tower, preventing really any damage. The opponent just left speechless here with a wow, and I would be too. He can't seem to get anything to connect against this deck because of the defensive firepower. Now, moving forward, against the balloon, we have Tornado, we have Tombstone, or we could just go ahead and use the rocket. So I think he's going to be using all the tools in his arsenal here against that oncoming balloon. So here we go again, the opponent trying to snipe that Princess, doing a pretty good job that time, but this time, this defense is going to call for a rocket. Unfortunately, he's not able to connect with that Mega Minion, but doesn't matter, able to still take it down before it connects to the right tower. But now the opponent has committed to this right tower with about 45 seconds or so left in this match. But check this out, Dion decides to go all out in the right lane here, using that Knight on defense, able to do a little bit of tanking, for that Goblin Barrel. Here comes Balloon. Is it going to connect? No, it's not going to connect because we have Princess and Tornado along with the tower. That's going to be enough to finish off that Balloon before, again, it makes contact, even with the Miner coming in. Good Knight placement there, able to prevent any further damage. Another really aggressive Fireball for the opponent, and that is going to be what really does him in here. Here it comes. We have two Princesses right now on the board, able to cycle all the way back in a second to Goblin Barrel. Check this out, guys. So here comes Knight Goblin Gang. We have Goblin Barrel at the ready, but guess what? I stand corrected. We don't even need it. All we need is a rocket here. He opts to go ahead and use that rocket. That's going to finish the job, and that's going to be GG. This is a really interesting deck, guys. If you're looking for something fun and off-meta to play, certainly give it a try. Let me know how you do with it. Do you think this is a kind of a fluke, or could this really be a viable deck? And has this changed any of your opinions on the Flying Machine? I want to know in the comments below, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and a huge shout out to my YouTube sponsor, Bren Chong. Let me not forget, check him out in the information below, guys. Give him some love. He does a lot for the community. And guys, thank you so much for watching. As always, take care, guys.